Welcome everyone to my in-depth guide to Dxtory. So, Dxtory is a screen capture program, unlike any other program I've ever used so far. Go ahead and head over to dxtory.com, choose your language. The developer is Japanese, so that's why you get both options. It's about 3,600 yen, I think it's exactly 36 yen, which equates to 40 US dollars, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's 40. So after you buy it and you download it, you open it up and you get a giant amount of options. Look at all this. Okay, so we've got all these tabs. We're going to start all the way over here in the folder tab. This is where you select your save locations. So I've got 3 selected right now. I only really need 1, but I have 3 just so I can show you something else later. So after you've selected your save location, like so, we will move on to the hotkeys. The hotkeys are very self-explanatory. Simply click on one of these, hit a key, and that will set your hotkey. Okay, let's get to the meat of it, the movie tab. So your first options here are codecs. By default, you'll be given the Dxtory video codec, and that's a pretty good codec, but we can do a little better than that. So go ahead and search for Lagarith. I apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but search for Lagarith and click on this. Go ahead and download and install that and restart Dxtory if you already had it opened. If you go down, you'll see the Lagarith lossless codec, okay? Now, click this little wrench and you'll be given a couple of options. We're just worried about the color mode. If you have a very, very, very fast computer and you're not worried about performance whatsoever, you can go ahead and use RGB, but I don't notice too much of a difference between RGB and YUY2, so I use YUY2 because my computer isn't, it's not amazing. It's pretty good, but it's not amazing, so make sure use multi-threading is checked, press OK, and on to frame rate. So one of the reasons why Dxtory is very powerful, and I like it a lot more than Fraps, is because I can play the game at a different frame rate than I record at. So I like playing games at 60 FPS at the very least, right? If I'm using Fraps and I'm going to want to record at 30 FPS, I also have to play at 30 FPS, which is just killer, to your gameplay if you want to do it all well. I can't play Counter-Strike at 30 FPS, or any game really. So I always record at 30 for gameplay unless I want slow motion, in which you'd use 60 just so you get more frames and all that business. Check file output. Direct show output is for other things such as live streaming and stuff, which I will explain in a different video. But for now, just keep file output checked. And here we get to one of the main reasons why Dxtory is a very powerful program. It has a feature called raw cap. Now, you only need to use this if you need data rates higher than normal, and I would consider recording at 60 FPS 1080p or even 30 FPS 1080p to be higher than normal data rates. Not very many hard drives are going to be able to keep up with data rates like that. So what this is, it's kind of an elegant software solution to people that don't really want to set up RAID 0. So RAID 0, if you don't know, is a way to go into your BIOS or have a RAID controller and essentially use 2 or more hard drives together collectively. So if I have 2 500 gigabyte hard drives at 7200 RPM and they both have write speeds of 50 megabytes a second, I will essentially have one hard drive in my computer that's 1 terabyte and has 100 megabytes a second write speed. So this kind of does the same thing. If you select raw cap and you go over here and you have multiple hard drives selected like I do, it will use all of these together. Now, the disadvantage is that because it's having to use them all, it's going to split up where it saves the files. So each hard drive will have pieces of your video file, and you're going to have to go down here, raw cap converter, I think that's what it stands for, click on it, and you'll have your video files here, and you will select them all and build selected files, okay? It's going to take a little while, but you know, that's what you have to do if you're recording like that. So back to this. I like to include my mouse cursor. Oh, I record in AVI. I don't use RawCap because I record in 720p, 1280 by 720 at 30 FPS, and I do not need to be using RawCap for that. Sometimes if I want to record in 1080p, I use that, but otherwise, I don't need it per se right now. Let's see here. Okay, scaling. So same with the frame rate. When I want to play a game in 1080p, which is 1920 by 1080, and I want to record at 720p, that's easily doable here. Unless Fraps has changed things around. If you want to record at 720p, you have to play at 720p, or play at double what 720p is, because I think it does have, like, you know, you can record at 50% of what you're playing at, or something like that. So you can select whatever size you want. I like to use size and put that in, and it'll record the file like that. It'll scale it and do all that business for you. So that's really, really nice. Moving on to sound. You can add as many sound inputs as you would like. I don't know if there's a limit, but oh, maximum 8. There you go. Okay. I mean, I don't know if you're going to need 8, but that's quite a few. So here's my microphone. And my second one is my computer volume. Everything that's happening on my sound card is going to be picked up by this. If you don't know too much about sound settings, I would recommend using PCM, 4400 Hertz, 16-bit stereo. That's pretty, I mean, that's as good as any of the microphones you'll be using are going to get. So unless you know specifically what you want here, this is what I would suggest. So once you have those selected, you can go over to some of the last settings here. Click on the Advanced tab, go down to Processing Threads, make sure that's at max. If you have 8 processing threads available, I would do research and see whether 4 or 8 is more beneficial. I'm not entirely sure, because sometimes you kind of want to leave some processing threads for the game. I'm not sure how that all pans out, but you may want to look that up. If you're running with Crossfire or SLI, you may want to look into using this if you're having issues. Enabled multi-GPU fixed code. And I believe that's about it. It's a very, very powerful program. You know, if you want to live stream with it, I'll have a tutorial for that later as well. It's personally what I use. You know, make sure you're updating it and such, because the developer is always adding new features and stuff like that. If you find that Dxtory is loading up in other programs, like your editing programs or your video playback programs like VLC or Windows Media Player Classic, that's what this right here is for. This ignores it. And you click on that, and you can add the exe file, you know, the path to the program. Press OK, and it'll ignore that, because I don't, you know, sometimes the little frame rate thing will pop up, and you'll have Dxtory available in your in whatever program you're using. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment, and I will be happy to answer it. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time with some more tutorials.